By the end of this weekend, someone's career changes forever. Either Ryan Garcia proves that he is him, or we finally admit that he was never that guy. And if Mario Barrios wins, we might have to apologize for doubting him. Hey everyone, welcome to Encinas Unfiltered. We are informed, unfiltered, and a match. At Encinas Unfiltered, you can expect raw takes, real talk, and sports like you haven't heard before. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. That really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. So now that football season's over and fantasy football season's over, we're now going to start transitioning into our MMA and boxing content. So this Saturday, live from Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena, February 21st, we have the ring high stakes where Mario Barrios will be facing Ryan Garcia. Barrios is defending his 147-pound strap, which is a welterweight championship. And in the co-main, we got Richardson Hitchins versus Oscar Duarte for the IBF Junior Welterweight Championship. Those are the two fights that we're going to cover in this episode. It'll be pretty short. It won't be nothing too crazy, but I thought I'd go ahead and kind of just share with you guys the two main fights that we're going to fight on this card. And in addition to that, there's also these other fights, but I'm not going to really get into those just for time's sake. So teletape, we got Mario Barrios versus Ryan Garcia. Mario Barrios is 30 years old. He's 29-2-2. He has a 71-inch reach. He's 6 foot, and he was about 147 pounds. He's a champion, WC welterweight champion. Ryan Garcia, on the other hand, is the younger fighter, 27. He's 24-2-0. He has a 70-inch reach. He's 5'8.5", 5'9" on a good day, and he weighs about 147 pounds. For this fight is what he should be weighing in. So looking at some of Mario Barrios' past opponents, he's recently fought Manny Pacquiao, which I think a lot of people remember him from. That was a draw majority decision. And he also beat Abel Ramos for the WBC World Welterweight Championship. He beat Fabian Maidana, and then you got Keith Thurman. He lost to Keith Thurman in February 2022 by unanimous decision, and then he lost to Gervonta Davis by TKO back in June of 2021. So when we look at Ryan Garcia, Ryan Garcia is 24-2. He's had some pretty prominent fights. He's fought in Raleigh most recently, where he lost to Raleigh in New York on the Times Square card. It was a no contest, no decision against Devin Haney. He beat Oscar Duarte, who's also on this card, by knockout. And then he lost to Gervonta Davis by knockout. Some of his more prominent fights is he's fought in Franesca, Luke Campbell, Fortuna, Davis, Durante, Haney, and Raleigh. But when we're looking specifically at this fight, really it's a career-shaping fight for both of these guys. And you're saying, well, why is that? It's like, well, Ryan Garcia is still trying to prove that he's more than just a social media superstar. Because I don't think anyone's going to deny the fact that Ryan Garcia is huge on social media. He's one of the biggest followings. That's kind of what helped him propel his fighting career. He's a great boxer, don't get me wrong. But I believe that is what kind of helped him, and him building that social media presence is what really propelled him into the spotlight. However, he's had a lot of up and downs, and he does need to establish some credibility in order to prove that he can hang in there with the best. For Mario Barrios, well, he has a chance to beat a massive name and really elevate his brand from this fight. He's already been in there with elite competition, so this isn't really a new territory for him, but a fight against Garcia and a win against Garcia in an impressive fashion can really raise the stock, especially in that 147-pound division. When we're looking or comparing the two fighters, Barrios is a naturally bigger, longer fighter, but Garcia has speed. So a lot of you guys know when you guys watch Ryan Garcia, you got to watch out for the left hook, right? So really it's going to come down to, can he hurt Barrios early? That's really the biggest question. And also another question is, does Ryan's power carry to the 147-pound division? Because you can remember before that he was at 135, then 140, and now he's at 147. So another thing we need to consider is Garcia's mental and emotional factor that could be taken account for in this fight. So when I say that is Ryan fights emotionally, when he smells blood, he kind of goes in for the kill, or not kind of, he does. When things don't go his way, he starts getting reckless. So the keys to victory, based on what I've kind of observed, is that if Ryan Garcia wants to win, he needs to control the distance. He needs to land the left hook early. That is his bread and butter. And make sure he doesn't gas after the 6th round. If he gasses after the sixth round and doesn't knock out Mario Barrios by then, we might see a very interesting fight. Mario Barrios will win if he uses a jab, uses his length. He's a naturally taller fighter. He has a bigger reach by an inch. He needs to target the body of Garcia, and he needs to force Ryan Garcia into very uncomfortable exchanges. And he can do that. He does have the experience. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And some of the questions that I think we need to answer if Ryan loses is he still considered elite, or is he still an elite fighter? Because, I really don't know what a loss would do for him at this point in his career. He's still young. He's popular. He's talented. He's strong. But I really think like if he wants to propel himself to the next level and be a great, he needs to get some wins at this point. If Mario Barrios wins, does he become a real player in the division? I mean, there's all these other champions, a lot of these fighters, Devin Haney's and the Raleighs of the world that are fighting and moving up to 147. So it'll be interesting to see how this landscape starts to play out. And then you have guys like Jose Ramirez moving up. Josh Taylor's also in the division now as well. So right now we have the WBC is Mario Barrios, and then the WBA is Romero. Then IBF is Lewis Crocker, and the WBO is Devin Haney. So next, I want to get into some pros and cons between Ryan Garcia and Mario Barrios. I'm actually going to start Ryan Garcia first. So some of his pros, he's got elite speed. He's got one of the fastest left hooks in boxing. He can close the distance really quickly, and he's very explosive in the early rounds. Two, he really, it's the power, right? His fight-changing power is second to none. He doesn't need a lot of punches. He just needs one big shot to kind of change the whole landscape of the fight. He's got confidence. The biggest stage doesn't really intimidate him. He's really used to that with all his social media and just being out in public. And he's shown that he's very comfortable in the spotlight. And for his youth, he's only 3 years younger than Barrios, but he has really elite, quick twitch reactions. Some of his cons, though, he does have some defensive holes. He loses chin high, he pulls straight back, and he can be caught between exchanges. Two, he is an emotional fighter. Some things I notice is when he gets hurt or frustrated, he just abandons the discipline. He goes head hunting. We see that quite a bit. There are some stamina questions. I'm interested to see how it goes. He has faded in longer physical fights, and if it goes past 7 or 8 rounds, that's the biggest question mark, is whether or not he can still have that cardio in those later rounds, especially with a guy like Barrios, who is used to going in those later rounds. And 4, size. He is undersized compared to Barrios. He's 5'8.5", and Barrios is 6 foot. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. With Mario Barrios, one, he has his natural size and length. He's taller, longer reach. He can control the distance with his jab. 2, he is experienced and he is elite. He's been in tough fights before, and he's comfortable in high pressure situations. 3, Mario Barrios is a pretty underrated body work. He's a pretty good underrated body puncher. And honestly, if he can get that going early and he can target Garcia's stamina, it'd be really interesting to see how that would change the fight and how that can change Ryan Garcia's game plan. And 4 is his durability. He has proven to be tough. He's proven to be gritty. Some of the cons, though, he's not very explosive. He doesn't really have fight-ending speed. He's more methodical than dynamic. 2, he can be hit. So his defense isn't airtight. And honestly, I think Ryan Garcia's speed can expose some of those holes. 3 is his momentum swings. Sometimes he lets the fight getting a little too close instead of taking over. And we kind of saw that in the Manny Pacquiao fight. Manny Pacquiao was 46 years old coming in this fight, hasn't fought in forever. And that fight was a lot closer than I think it should have been. By the end of this weekend, someone's career changes forever. Either Ryan Garcia proves that he is him, or we finally admit that he was never that guy. And if Mario Barrios wins, we might have to apologize for doubting him. The next fight I want to get into is Hitchins versus Duarte. So Hitchins is 20-0 with 8 knockouts. Duarte is 30-2-1 with 23 knockouts. Hitchins is 28 years old. Duarte is 29. Hitchins has an inch on Duarte, and Hitchins has a 3-inch reach advantage versus Duarte. So looking at Richardson, Hitchins' last couple of fights, some notable names from there is Jose Zepeda, Limos, Paro, George Cambosos Jr. So looking at some of Duarte's fights, I'm looking for guys that have a big record. Juan Jose Montes, Ray Perez, Adrian Estrella, Hernandez, Santiago, Garcia, Godinez, Resendez, Franco, Martin, Keys, Ryan Garcia, Joseph Diaz, Akamendov, and Majerno, Keith Sims Jr. So when we're looking at this fight, this honestly is a really sneaky good fight. And I'm going to try my best to not be biased. I am very biased towards Oscar Duarte. He's a friend of the show, and his team has been very supportive. So I first want to say thank you guys for being supportive of me and what I'm doing here. But this fight is going to be sneaky good. There is a style clash. So Hitchins is a technician, very patient. He's very clean boxer. Duarte is very pressure. He's power. He's gritty. So this is your classic boxer versus pressure fighter matchup. This is one of Hitchins' biggest moments. He's trying to prove that he belongs in this top tier of fighters. Some of the critics have to say that he's very skilled, but he's not exciting. But Duarte does bring some danger and markability for Hitchins if he does win. One of the questions that I kind of want to ask, and maybe you guys can let me know in the comments, is does Hitchins need a dominant KO to build his brand? I don't know if that happens, but it's just something to think about. Duarte's path to victory is he needs to close the distance early. He needs to rough him up, make it ugly, and force Hitchins into exchanges instead of letting him cruise. So the winner is going to get closer to a major title contention, And this could be a breakout moment for either guy. At this level, who often wins the most, a pure boxer or a pressure power? So let me know in the comments what you guys think about that. Let's get into some pros and cons about this fight. First, I'm going to talk about Richardson Hitchins. So some of his pros: one, he's very technical. He has a clean jab. He controls his range really well, and he has very smart footwork. Two, his ring IQ. He adjusts mid-fight, and he doesn't rush. Three is his defensive responsibility. So he's very hard to hit clean, and he doesn't take unnecessary risk. And four is composure. He doesn't get dragged into chaos easily. So some of Hitchinson's wins are not always dominant visually. And whenever you leave the fights in the hands of the judges, it can be very risky. So I really don't like that for him. He does have limited power. It's not really a one-punch KO artist. And he does struggle to keep pressure fighters honest. And lastly, if he's forced backward consistently, his rhythm can break. So it does leave him vulnerable to pressure. So some of the pros of Oscar Duarte: one is his pressure and his aggression, which is, anybody who watches Oscar Duarte, that is what he's known for. He walks down his opponents and he makes the fights physical. Two, his power. He can hurt opponents late. We've seen it time and time and again, and he has very good combinations, very strong combinations. Three, his mental toughness. He's comfortable in rough fights. And four, he's very friendly style. So the judges of fights do notice his aggression. Some of the cons of him and his fighting style is he can be predictable with his forward movement. He can walk into counters sometimes. He does leave openings when he's pressuring fighters. And sometimes he follows fighters instead of cutting off the ring effectively. But honestly, another one of his pros is that he's at RGBA with Robert Garcia. And, Robert Garcia has always got a plan for all of his fighters. So he's with some of the best fighters in the world. So it'll be interesting to see how all that goes this upcoming Saturday. So I just wanted to give you guys some odds on the fight. So the current odds is Ryan Garcia is between 225 to 255 favorite. Barrios is at about a plus 175 to 185 underdog, and the draw is around plus 1600. So the experts, based on gathering all the sources together, are predicting Ryan Garcia to win by KO or TKO. So they're leaning towards Garcia getting the stoppage, especially if he lands a left hook early and doesn't get drawn into range wars. His power and speed edge in totals in his favor as long as he's motivated and disciplined. So it's interesting to see that the odds makers actually have Ryan Garcia winning by KO, TKO. I think it's going to prove a lot harder for him, especially with Barrios, who's a lot taller. And he usually doesn't get into those types of exchanges. So really the thing we have to look for is Garcia's odds and power projections suggest he's capable of ending it early, but Barrios has a jab, reach, and patience to drag this into deep waters. This fight is going to be much about Garcia's discipline as it is about his talent. So the official sportsbook odds for the Hitchins versus Duarte fight is they have Hitchins as a clear favorite between minus 210 to minus 300, and Duarte is underdog from plus 320 to plus 390. The experts picks, now this is not my pick, is Hitchins to win by decision by using his boxing IQ, his jab, and his technique to run the pace and outpoint Duarte over 12 rounds. My personal and pretty biased opinion is I think Duarte, if he can go out there and cut the ring off from Hitchins, he can knock him out. Duarte has some serious power. So that would probably be my personal prediction, is I think Duarte goes in there and knocks him out. So when looking at this fight card or just fighting in general, at the end of the day, styles makes fights. This main event is speed versus size. In the co-main, you got IQ versus pressure. I'm calling that Garcia wins by knockout. And I personally believe I'm going to go against the experts here, and I believe that Duarte is going to knock out Hitchins if he can cut off the ring. But boxing doesn't care about predictions, right? I mean, we'd all put all the predictions out in the world, and really, it's all about execution of the fighters. Hey, everybody, thanks for sticking around. I know this was a little bit of a different episode. Usually I do some more long-form content. Usually I have a co-host, right? But this is kind of what the content's going to look like until football season's up. So if you guys have any suggestions or if you guys have any questions, comments, please drop them below and let me know. You can expect this type of content to continue happening, probably be a little bit longer in the future to talk about different fights. Like this weekend is boxing. UFC might be a little bit longer, but it's going to be kind of more of just like not such a deep dive, but more of like what you should expect, some of the pros and cons, and some of the odds. I'm just kind of highlighting and giving some of these guys their flowers. To pull the curtain back, I am still getting used to not filming this without a co-host. I've done that for a really long time with football. So it is a little different to film in front of a camera by yourself with no one else around you, or talking to someone, basically talking to myself or to the audience, right? So that's something that I'm working on through me. So there's awkward pauses or just, I'm still trying to figure it out. Thanks for watching. You can check us out at all of our social media. So we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and we're on X. You can check this out at Encinas Unfiltered. On X, we are at Encinas UF. You can also go to our website, which is www.encinasunfiltered.com, where you can see everything that's going on in Encinas Unfiltered related. Expect more of this content until football season starts. We're still going to do the football every now and then as stuff comes up, like the combine or the draft. But for right now, at least until football season or until football content starts up again, we're going to be focusing on more on the MMA and the boxing. You can also look out for some of our interviews that we're going to be doing. I plan on getting both pro and amateur MMA and boxers onto the show to do some interviews. The point of the interviews is to show the human side of athletes, because I think a lot of us in today's media and world forget that there is still a real human behind the athlete. And I think it's good to see the human side of these people. And it's a really good way to sit down and really get to know who the person is behind the athlete, right? So expect more of that. And until next time, everybody, thanks for sticking around. Peace.